Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm thrilled to be here to talk to you about something that is really important now more than ever, which is email marketing. Specifically, we're going to be discussing how to spice up the inbox using email for customer acquisition and retention. And I'm thrilled to be joined this morning by Kim Kramer, second generation vintner at Kramer Vineyards. Many of you may be familiar with her and her family. And I'm Adrienne Stillman. I'm the Director of Marketing at WineDirect, and really thrilled to be here with Kim and to talk about this really important subject. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of this presentation this morning, this is something I get a lot, which is people saying, I thought email was dead. Like, shouldn't we all just be on Snapchat? And while nothing against Snapchat, and so social media in general is definitely very important. We're going to talk about that late in this presentation as well. But email is still really, really important, especially when we're talking about driving sales. And so a couple of stats, if you need some for your, for your arsenal to convince maybe other people on your team who are a little skeptical. So 59% of marketers say that email is their biggest source of ROI, of return on investment. 27% is the open rate for hobby-related emails, according to MailChimp. And this is the highest average open rate of any category. This is great news for wine because we kind of fall in that hobby-related sector when we're thinking about our customers and who we're talking to. And third, email generates $38 for every $1 spent. That is a 3,800% return on investment. So if you need some of these numbers to, to help kind of get kickstarted or maybe convince some people on your team, here they are. I also really like this quote. This is from Chad White at Oracle Marketing. And, not only is email not dead, email is only getting, more important and more powerful. And one of the things that's really important to think about in email is that you own that relationship with the customer. When they give you your email address, or when they give you their email address, you are the one in control. You can decide when and how you're going to communicate with that person. Whereas when you're communicating with them via a Facebook, whether it's an organic post or Facebook ads or Google, Google advertising, Facebook and Google are in control of that relationship. They decide what content gets served up to people and when and how much you have to pay for it. So we're going to, as I said, talk about using social media as well as email, and they're really important. They work in tandem, but it's not a replacement for email. Email is still super relevant. I also want to talk a little bit about e-commerce because that's one of the reasons that email is so important right now. Last year, we saw e-commerce sales in the United States overall grow 44% over 3 months. That's 10 years of growth in a single quarter of the year. That's tremendous, tremendous growth. And although it was certainly, really, really high in that first part of the year, it was sustained throughout the fall. And what we saw at WineDirect is, this is an example, just as an example, over Cyber Week in 2020, e-commerce revenue grew 2 times over 2019 among our clients. So you can see from these charts on the left, you have 2019, on the right is 2020. The point of sale tasting room revenue, down slightly. That's not that surprising, given what's been going on with lockdowns and tasting room closures, but not so dramatic. The other category, which might be telesales, and other type sort of non-website orders, up slightly, but you can see that really, really dramatic increase that happened in e-commerce year over year. And so e-commerce is here to stay. It wasn't a flash in the pan. It's not going away anytime soon. And email is really one of the very best ways that you can drive more e-commerce sales in 2021. So for those of you who aren't familiar with WineDirect, just to tell you a little bit about us, we provide software solutions for wineries to manage your direct-to-consumer sales and marketing. So that includes Wine Club, point of sale, and e-commerce software. It also includes marketplace distribution, where we partner with marketplaces like Vivino and eBay, so you can make your wines available to consumers on those platforms. And finally, it includes fulfillment services. And we're very proud to have opened up a fulfillment center about 2 years ago in the Willamette Valley. And if anyone's looking for a new fulfillment partner, we'd love to talk to you. So on the agenda today, this is a deceptively short list because we have a lot of content to cover in each of these sections. So first, we're going to talk about how to find new customers online, especially top of mind right now when tasting rooms are operating, at least at limited capacity. How do you find new people to buy your product? We're going to then talk about how to drive engagement and repeat sales among those customers. And finally, we're going to talk about measuring your success. And this third one, sometimes it's not maybe as sexy or as exciting as some of the other work that we might be doing, but it's so important because if you don't measure your success, you don't know what's working, you don't know what's not working, and you can't figure out, where to best put your energy for future. I also want to share with you a free calendar download. So this is really my number one tip when getting started on any kind of marketing, including email marketing, is start with a calendar. And I'll throw a link to this calendar up in the chat during the broadcast, which also reminds me that we are recording this in advance. And so Kim and I will be available live on the day in the chat. We'd love to answer your questions there. And then certainly if you have follow-up, we'd be happy to talk to you via email or on Twitter. So let's dig in. Let's talk about finding new customers. So kind of like step one, and we're gonna walk through a case study that Kim and Kramer Vineyards last year. So step one, entice people to sign up for your mailing list. Obviously, you can't email them if they're not on your list already. So here's an example of a Facebook ad. Facebook advertising is a really prime way to entice people to join the mailing list. So this is an ad, Kim, that you guys ran last year. Tell us a little bit about this campaign and how it worked for you.
Yeah, so one of our goals, well, it's always our goal to grow the email list, as for the many reasons that you just outlined about how powerful email marketing can be. And with us having to adjust to reduce foot traffic over the last year, we decided to take those efforts online. And so one of our strategies was to do a Facebook leads ad campaign that was centered around our sparkling program and targeted at people who are interested in sparkling wine already, and to try and get them to join the mailing list through just a basic introduction as to who we are.
Awesome. And so you guys had really good success with this campaign. I think you had, you told me 800 new mailing list members and a really good, price per email subscriber, which is very impressive.
Yeah, so Facebook has great ways of measuring success of the campaigns. And so I thought, well, if I can keep this under a certain dollar amount, I'll just keep running the ad. And through a series of testing, we landed on this with this amount of ad copy, this imagery. And as long as it was under $2 a subscriber, I thought that was well worth the investment. And also then I already know what wines they're interested in, so then I can reach out to them and let them know about a good sparkling offer down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to come back to this later on, but your focus on testing, I think, is so important. Testing out different images, testing out different headlines, different types of copy, lengths of copy. Testing is so important, both on the social media side, and on the email side. And it's going to be different for each brand, and it might be different for different types of content that you're producing. One size doesn't fit all. It is really important to test. So after you've gotten them to sign up for the email list, now step number 2, send them a welcome email, or multiple emails. So Kim, this is an example of when, if someone signs up for the Kramer Vineyards email list, they get this welcome note.
Yeah, just a really simple, welcome to the email list. Here's a little bit about us. The icons for social media. And then if they're ready to dive into the store, I've got the little bar on the top for that as well.
Right. Yeah. And I think, this is really important place. When someone signs up for your mailing list, they're telling you that they're interested in your brand. You want to respond to them immediately. So you want this to be automated, which of course yours is. So, kind of step 3, then we've got them on the mailing list. We've welcomed them to the list. Now we want to continue to nurture them via email and via social media to drive additional purchases. So tell us about this Facebook ad that you ran last year and how it performed for you.
So this is kind of a geekier set of Pinot Noir where I was experimenting with whole cluster fermentation at different rates. So the person that's going to be interested in this is probably very different than the person that's interested in sparkling wine. And one of the ways that we ascertain as to who should see this is by following their activity on the website. So Facebook has a really great tool called Pixel where I can select certain web pages where people have visited to show them this ad for something that they might be interested in based on their previous behavior. And so we were able to convert both warm and cold audiences with this ad and that kind of targeting.
Nice. And one of the things I love about this ad is that, you've got a pretty long, the copy at the top is long, and you have to click see more to actually read all of it. Typically we think of ad copy as it should be short and sweet. You don't want to say too much, but you tested this and you found that this kind of longer amount of information, almost a blog post, was actually really effective.
It's literally a cut and paste of a blog post we did about this project. So we tested different copy links, and my expectation is that the short and sweet was going to be the winner. And I was really surprised by this result, but went with it. And so, yeah, just like with the previous ad, testing the copy length, the headline, the button, the images, all of those things, these small tweaks can make a huge difference. And so going through and doing that work, letting and gathering that data can really make a difference in the success of whatever type of social media campaign you're trying to run.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other, group that I want to talk about, we've talked about finding net new customers who've, not heard of your brand before. But there's another group that I want to touch on that I think we forget about. And those are people who are already on your mailing list, but who have never bought before. Or maybe they're on your mailing list, but they haven't bought for, really quite a long time. And there's some gold to mine there. In a way, it's sort of reacquiring customers that you already have. Can you get them to start purchasing from you, or can you get them to buy again? And so I want to share an example that I received a couple of years ago, and I love this email for a variety of reasons. It's from a California brand called Lioco. I'm on their mailing list, but I had not purchased from them direct to consumer before. So they sent me this email. I'm going to call out, a couple of things I think they did really well in this email. The first is the subject line, which is personalized to me. Are you there, Adrian? And this is kind of, a little bit playful, kind of fun. It's obviously got my name in it. It made me want to open the email. They tell me then straight up front that they know who I am and they know my relationship with them. So, we know you're out there, but you haven't purchased direct from us. We'd like to give you a reason to. They have put together a really kind of low bar to cross offer. So an entry-level offer, entry-level wines, 2 bottles. I haven't purchased before. They're really kind of sweetening the pot for me to try to get me to start. Obviously with the hope that I'm going to try them once, really like the wines, and reorder. They're also very clear up front about what the offer is, both in terms of what the wines are and what the discount is. And then they reinforce that a little bit below. You notice they tell me, here's the suggested retail and what full price shipping would be, but here's what you're getting. So I really can see the value there and hopefully, feel even better about this offer. There's a great, purchase now link there. And, overall, this email is obviously an all text email. And while the kind of glossier, more photography-based photo emails are fantastic, all text can also be very effective. And so I encourage you to think about this when you're designing your email campaigns. You may want to mix it up. And in addition to the ones that are more photo-based or look a little bit more, highly produced, send out some emails that look like they actually came from a specific person. Okay. So we've acquired our new customers. We've got our 800 people from Facebook who like sparkling wine. Now, how do we drive engagement and repeat sales with these people? And step number 1 is know your customer. So if you don't know who you're talking to, it's really hard to write for them or to design offers that are going to appeal to them. And Kim, you actually said this to me when we were talking about this. We're going to get into, how you've approached this with your brand, but you told me that when you knew who you were talking to, when you could kind of get inside the head of the consumer, it just made everything easier.
Yeah, totally. From the messaging, the design of the email, the different calls to action, and then of course, the offer itself.
Yeah. All right. So let's dig in. So we're going to talk about Kramer Vineyard's personas. Personas is kind of is marketing speak for building out different consumer profiles. And I really encourage everyone to, after this session, go back with your team, brainstorm, and come up with at least 3 distinct different personas or consumer profiles that you can use in your marketing. So the first one we have for Kramer is personified by Reese Witherspoon. She's our sparkling maven. Kim, tell us about this consumer.
So working with my team, trying to figure out who our target sparkling customer is, and seeing the patterns in the tasting room tend to skew a little younger. We also noticed that this customer dresses well. They shop at Nordstrom, they shop at Lululemon, they go to fitness classes. They tend to have more education and really care about what's in the wine. So I'm getting a lot of questions from these people about how much residual sugar is in there, what the alcohol level is. This is someone that really, really cares about what they're putting in their body, and so this is what we came up with for our sparkling app.
Yeah, and I also, I love that you chose celebrities.
Yeah.
For your personalities. I do encourage everyone to pick find a photograph and name your personas, because it does really help to actually think about them as people as opposed to some kind of abstracted pile of data. So number 2, we have the wine nerd, personified by Bill Nye the Science Guy, which I love. So tell us about this consumer, Kim.
So we offer some kind of higher level geekier wines, and the type of customer that these are for, they tend to skew a little bit older. So they're going to be Gen X or Boomer, and they're the ones that love talking to me in the tasting room because they're peppering me with all manner of questions, technical questions, and chances are they've done a little bit of tinkering with brewing or winemaking, or maybe they're a bread maker. There's someone who just really wants to dive deeply into the details of process. And so what makes them interested in us is that we can deliver that information to them in a way that's understandable and accessible.
Yeah. All right, and number 3, we have our Reds Only Please, Mr. Denzel Washington. Tell us about him.
So our Reds Only customer, they know their palate. They are really confident in their palate. Maybe they'll try something new, but chances are if they come at me with the Reds Only opinion, that's really what they want to be served. And if we can win them over, they're extremely brand loyal. They also tend to be really interested in technology. So they'll have the latest, whatever the gadget du jour is. And as opposed to the wine nerd, they really want to know about vineyard stuff. They're the ones that are going to ask me about clones and rootstocks and soil types and weather patterns. And so yeah, just a very kind of a more vineyard focused approach to the types of wines that they're drinking.
Yeah. And so as we look at these 3 personas up here, I think we can all get a feel for how different these people are and how different the conversations that you have with them, certainly in person. And then therefore, by extension, the different kind of content that they're going to be interested in, the way that you might speak to them when you send out a sparkling offer versus the way you might speak to someone when you send out your Pinot Noir clone, sort of 6 different clones offer. And that's reflected, we can kind of see those earlier examples that you shared with us, Kim. We can see that reflected here. The kind of Bill Nye the Science Guy who wants those nerdy sort of clone lineup. He wants to read the whole blog post.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we know our customers. Step 2 is to segment and personalize. And Personalization is something that gets bandied about a lot. It can be a little bit intimidating, but it doesn't have to be. And you can do this. You don't need a big marketing team. Kim is a one-woman winemaker and marketing maven. I don't know how she does all of these things. It's so impressive. So like this is achievable for every single person watching this session. So personalization means that you're tailoring your content based on who your customer is and their relationship with you. And then segmentation means that you're splitting up your mailing list into smaller groups and sending them targeted messages. So this can be super simple. Some of it you may already even be doing, already. So dear first name, that is personalization. Sending happy birthday or club anniversary emails is personalization. Maybe you send a different version of a message to your club members versus non-members. Or maybe you're doing geographic segmentation, for event invitations or shipping specials or shipping deadlines, depending on where people are located. So those are all examples of personalization. And again, these are all things that are achievable, and it's not big and scary. I also get asked often, is this really worth it? Because if you're personalizing, you're by definition going to be producing maybe a couple different versions of the email rather than just one that you send to everybody. And the answer is yes, it's absolutely worth it. And so again, for the skeptics in the room, here are some stats for you. So personalized emails get 26% more opens than non-personalized emails. They generate 20% more sales, and they account for 58% of total email revenue. So absolutely 100% worth it. You will generate more sales if you're personalizing your offers. So let's talk about, kind of a pretty simple example. Kim, this was your year-end sale in 2020. Tell us about this campaign and the personalization segmentation that you did with it.
Yeah, so for this campaign, we targeted club members who tend to buy cases. So for end of year, I had stacks of 10 cases of this, 15 cases of that I didn't want to have to record for inventory in January. And so we bumped their discounts up a little bit with the goal of getting them to take advantage of that 40% off 3-case offer. And we were also able to rework this to send to other case buyers who aren't necessarily members with a different discount structure. So yes, we created this campaign for the wine club, but then we were able to rework it so that we could target it at different audiences as well.
And, there's a couple of things I want to call out there, because one is that you did this for different audiences, and the only difference was the discount structure. So you were able to create, one campaign, pretty much one, image or GIF, and all you had to do was change the numbers. So like pretty simple to create those two different versions. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on that you mentioned to me before is that you accompanied the email campaign part of this with a Facebook ad campaign.
Yeah. So again, using the Facebook Pixel tool, I reworked the GIF so that it would for a Facebook ad presentation. So that anybody that clicked on this email that went to the sale webpage, because it was a hidden page, would then get reminded of the year-end sale, and that seemed to be an effective strategy for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that combination of email with social media is very powerful. I mean, you really see a lift on the whole campaign when you have multiple touch points. So highly recommend that strategy. All right, step number 3, we know our customer. We've segmented and we've personalized content for them. Step number 3, mix up your content. So far we've really been talking about sales-oriented messages, and those are obviously very important, but you don't always and only want to ask people for the sale, because just like, the friend who only calls you when they need something, eventually you get a little tired of that and you're like, it'd be nice if you called, like, when I need you, or maybe just for a chat. So some examples of content that you can send and share with your list that are not sales offers. This is an example from Presqu'île. It's a winery in the Central Coast of California. They have a really incredible garden on site and an in-house chef. And so she made a video about building a permaculture garden that they shared with their list. Another example from Tank Garage, which is in Napa, a winery in Napa. This is their newsletter that they do on, I think, a monthly basis. They call it Lubrication, and they share kind of cool things from around the internet that they think that their list might find interesting. And some of them might be brand related, but most of them are not. They're not even wine related. They're just kind of fun. They get really great engagement with this newsletter, and it just creates that kind of relationship feeling and that little kind of warm fuzzy, so that when this subscriber gets the next wine offer, you've just kind of teed them up and nurtured them to be ready to buy. And then finally, really a layup for all of us are photos and and commentary on what's going on in the vineyard and what's going on in the winery. This is something that everybody can produce, and I think, yes, it's ubiquitous. I mean, a lot of people are doing it, but folks who don't live in wine country love seeing what's going on in the vineyard and in the winery. They're not maybe inundated by it like we are when we're in the industry. So I really encourage you to take advantage of those natural opportunities that are presented to you on a daily basis to share. So just a couple ideas of ways that you can mix up your content. All right, let's wrap up with measure your success, which again, this is a little bit of sometimes can be forgotten. It's not quite as fun as creating like really great gifts, but it's super important. So number one is define your goals. If you don't know what the heck you're trying to do, you cannot measure success. And you can have different goals for various email campaigns. A very obvious goal is sales, of course. You might also want to drive club signups specifically. You might want to drive engagement, especially if you're sending out some of that less salesy content. If it's a newsletter or like a fun video, your metric there would be opens and clicks, and maybe video views. And that is valuable. There is inherent value in those engagement metrics. And a fourth option might be data collection. So every time somebody interacts with your email, every time they go to your website, or if you're running like a quiz, for example, you're collecting data about them and information about what they like. What kind of topics are they interested in? Are they all clicking on the recipe content? Did they really enjoy that winemaking blog post? Do they really respond best to reds? Are they, do they buy kind of everything? That data is also important, and that goes back to the personalization and segmentation that we talked about. You can use that information to inform the kinds of content that you send to them later. So define your goals and figure out what you're trying to do with each campaign. Kim, let's talk a little bit more in depth and then share with us the metrics that you're tracking when you're measuring success of your campaigns.
Well, I'm always looking at the sales numbers. I want to see that those are up. But looking at those a little bit more in detail, for the wines that we're putting in front of people, are those the ones that are selling, or are they looking at the offer and buying something else? So that's putting that link, I think, is really important. And then if those numbers aren't matching up, figure out why. Or tailor an offer for the wines that people are interested in, as opposed to the one you think they should be interested in. The other thing that we look at is the engagement. So what's our open rate? What's our click rate? Are people contacting us with questions about the offer? I think all of that stuff, that gauging the level of interest is really critical to figuring out the success of your campaigns also. And then the other thing I like to look at is, are we moving people up in this relationship that we have with them? So do we have their email, but they're not buying anything? Have they bought once, but they're not a repeat customer yet? Are they a repeat customer, but not a club member? And so part of that's nurturing, part of that's maybe figuring out if you've been ignoring certain needs of certain audiences for a time. So it's part of a balanced marketing approach, I think, to really look at those segments and see which ones are growing and maybe which ones are a little more stagnant and need to hear from you. And then the other thing that we look at is the net mailing list growth. I think that it's really critical not just to collect the email from people, but also to look at your unsubscribe rate, and then go through and do that mailing list maintenance every so often to get rid of addresses that are no longer good. And because looking at that, that'll give you a much better indication of the health of your mailing list and your marketing efforts overall.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that really highlights the importance of data cleanliness too. You know, making sure you sort of garbage in, garbage out. You want to make sure that you're keeping tabs on your data. That can be, you know, sometimes there's typos in emails. That can be something that's important. You don't want to miss somebody just because they, you know, forgot, misspelled, like, you know, .cm instead of .com, for example. There's little stuff like that. And then of course, people unsubscribe, people change their email addresses. So if you're, you know, if you're not growing your email list, you're not staying the same, you are shrinking. So I think that's sometimes people don't think about it that way. It's definitely, you know, if even to stay the same, you need to be growing or adding new people rather. All right, so we've covered a ton of ground in, you know, in this presentation. So a couple of key takeaways just to leave you with. So number one is, you know, using social media to reach new potential customers, really effective. Once you've converted them to your mailing list, follow up with email and more social to drive those sales. Don't forget to mix up your content. Don't be the friend who only calls when you need a favor. Make sure you're segmenting your list and personalizing those offers. And finally, make sure that you measure your success. I also invite everyone to check out the WineDirect DTC Knowledge Center. This is available for free at winedirect.com/resources. We have blog posts, ebooks. We've got that winery marketing calendar template that I mentioned earlier. We've got a more in-depth case study talking about Kramer Vineyards and their e-commerce success. We've got webinars. So we definitely invite you to check that out. And we'd also love to see you in our virtual booth. So if anyone is interested in learning more about WineDirect, if you're an existing client, you just want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. And so with that, thank you again all so much for joining us. This was a fantastic conversation. Kim, thank you for all of your insight. This was really fun. And if anyone has follow-up questions, please feel free to email me. I'm adrian.stillman@winedirect.com, or you can contact me via the symposium messages as well. So Kim, thank you again so much.
For sure.